Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Closed by Mo. My name is Mohammed. I'm your favorite YouTube host on most things real estate, I hope. I'm also a real estate investor and broker based out of New York City. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about something that is actually, affects a lot of homeowners that have a lot of high equity in their home or owners that are just a lot more senior and may not understand typically what are some of the more common scams that are happening in real estate nowadays. What I'm referring to is what we call equity stripping, or like a refinance and repurchase scam, sometimes referred to as like a sale leaseback scam. We're going to talk a little bit more about exactly what that is and how you can prevent it from happening to you or someone that you love. So without further ado, let's jump right into this topic for this week. Now, basically the way a refinance and repurchase scam would work, or sometimes referred to like a sale leaseback or even like an equity stripping scam, is when a scammer is able to identify a property or a property owner who's in a financially distressed position, whether that's looking at public record and realizing that the property owner is in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, or short sale, or even they realize that, hey, this person hasn't paid their taxes because their property taxes are delinquent. These are all tip-offs that a scammer needs to know that, hey, the person that owns this property is facing some kind of financial hardship. And the way the scam would work effectively is they would approach the homeowner and they would tell them, hey, look, I can stop your property from going into foreclosure. I can give you a lot of cash up front to help you pay off your credit card debt, your loan, rebalance, or whatever amount that is that you're past due. Basically, what it would involve is the scammer convincing the homeowner to transfer the title to the scammer's name, and then the scammer giving the homeowner a bunch of cash up front. And the way that the scammer would entice the homeowner to do that is by saying, hey, look, if you're able to do this for me and I give you a bunch of cash up front, I'll let you repurchase the property later on, or I'll let you rent from me for the time being until you're ready to repurchase later on. Now, a lot of scammers in this particular scenario will take advantage of that situation, especially because the homeowner is in a very financial distressed position. Basically, the homeowner will be more likely to make any kind of desperate decision, right? Basically in the form of like making false promises of relief from the scammer's end to tell the homeowner, hey, look, I'm gonna give you a bunch of cash up front. You can pay off all your credit card debt, your the loan payments that you've missed, or even like the property taxes that you're delinquent on. We can help you save this house. And the homeowner would then transfer the title over to the scammer, in which case the homeowner is now losing the equity that they've built up in the property, and they might evidently also eventually lose the property itself as well, because if the scammer were to turn around and say, hey, look, that agreement that we had in place, that rental amount, whatever amount it is, now the rent is doubled and you have to make all these payments on time for me to be able to transfer this property back to you. And a lot of these scams, a lot of times the homeowner might still feel like they actually own the property still, even though they've transferred the title over to the scammer, because hey, they're still living in the house, they're technically paying rent to their new owner, whoever it is that's giving them a lot of cash up front, assuming they actually even get that cash up front, right? A couple of ways to sort of spot these scams or spot these scammers is if you're in a financially distressed position and anyone comes up to you and says, hey, you need to act quickly to save your house. We're going to give you a bunch of cash up front. We can help you avoid foreclosure, short sale, or help you save this home. Whatever it is that they're doing, if they're telling you to act quickly, that should be your number one sign. Of course, a second option or a second sign is if you're getting a bunch of unsolicited offers. So if you haven't put your house on the market and now you're getting a bunch of calls and texts and emails and even maybe door knockers from people that are claiming to be able to help you, prevent you from foreclosure or help you save your house in exchange for getting a lot of cash up front so then you can use that cash to pay off the bills, whatever it is, that should also be a scam. I think one of the biggest, I would say, telltale signs is if you notice that the scammers or the person who's, promising you all these things doesn't have any proper documentation. So if you're not seeing like any contract paperwork or any kind of legal representation, that should be a big sign, because a lot of times scammers won't be able to get an attorney to represent them in a transaction, especially if the attorney is able to find out that they're doing some kind of a scam or anything kind of shady going on that will negatively affect the homeowner in the long term. A couple of ways to sort of protect yourself, of course, is to, number one, make sure you look for credentials from the person who's claiming to be whatever they're claiming to be. If it's a company that's saying, hey, look, we want to buy your house and give you a bunch of cash up front, make sure you verify the credentials, do a Google search, do an online search of reviews, whatever it is, to see what you can dig up on the company itself. Google is your best friend. Of course, the second thing you can also do to protect yourself is seek legal advice. Always make sure you have an attorney representing you that is separate from any attorney that the buyer or the scammer might be recommending you. You want to make sure that the attorney that you're using gives you a peace of mind, even if you have to pay a couple of dollars up front for a retainer, whatever it is, it's well worth the cost. Also, the third thing to make sure that you're protecting yourself is do your due diligence. work through all the different contract terms, all the paperwork, make sure that you're looking up the entities or the individuals that are making offers on your property. In New York State or any kind of state that you're in, there's a public record of all the entities that are being held privately or publicly. So you can go into your Department of State in New York. That's the Department of State. You can go in and you can look up all the records of all the entities that are currently active or inactive, and you can find out any kind of history on them, who owns them, what's the ownership record, all that fun stuff. And I would say one sort of sign or one sort of way to actually really protect yourself is to trust your instincts, right? There's no real way for me to quantify this, but if you feel like something feels off, or if you're getting some kind of a bad vibe from someone, I'd say most of the time that's true, and there's no way for me to describe this because I've been in scenarios like this as well where I'm like, hey, I'm getting a bad gut feeling about this because something feels off. That's your nervous system or your peripheral system just sort of telling you, hey, some things aren't quite adding up. We don't really know how to identify those or quantify those, but some things just aren't adding up. So if you feel like you're getting a bad vibe from someone, you can absolutely tell them, hey, I need some time to think about this, or hey, I'm going to do my own due diligence and have my attorney review everything before I sign anywhere, because you have to understand all that hard-earned equity that you've built up in your property. Even if you're facing financial troubles, the laws are there to protect you from getting scammed, or maybe even losing your house in foreclosure, bankruptcy, whatever it is. So the more you know, happy investing, buying, selling, or homeowning, whatever it is you're doing. And if you have more questions about this, or if you think you're being solicited by a scammer and you're not 100% certain, all my information is below. I'm more than happy to give you my second opinion free of charge, of course. I'll catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.